Hi friends, this is Krish, the Urban Naxal. I'm going to talk about what it is that makes marriages work. Kind of a big topic. There are many kinds of marriages, as in there is the love marriage, there is the arranged marriage, main two sides in India. There is a marriage where the woman goes and lives with her in-laws along with her husband. There is the marriage so in the in-laws thing, she's basically marrying the whole family. There is the dynamic where she doesn't live with the in-laws, she goes and she and her husband go live separately. Often in Indian families that happens a bit later, like you get married, you stay at home with the in-laws, then maybe 2 years, 3 years later, after you have had a lot of fights and you have said fuck you to each other in multiple ways and you have thrown bartans at each other and basically shouted and screamed, then the husband decides, you know what, it's a good idea to move out because my mom and my wife are going to make my life miserable. And while I was miserable even staying here, because my mom would complain to me about what my wife said and my wife would complain to me about what my mom said, and I was expected to make peace. And that's a horrible place for a guy to be in. I mean, I don't know what it is like for the woman because I'm not a woman, but it's a horrible place for a guy to be in because it's very frustrating. You can't make women have peace. You can't make them have peace. It's not possible. You can't compromise solution your mother and your wife. It doesn't work. At least it doesn't work in the long run. If they do it on one particular day, you're a very lucky man. But most days it's not going to happen and you're going to have a world of pain. So do not try to broker peace between your mom and your wife. Just stay out of the way and say, okay, you guys slug it out. Beat each other if that's what you want. I'm not involved. That is probably your best way. And if your dad is getting involved, maybe you should tell him, Dad, stay out of the way. And if your bhaiya or bhabhi is getting involved, you tell them, listen, stay the fuck out of the way. Let mom and she deal it out. Okay. Or if your wife and your sister are having a fight, very bad position for you to be in. You don't want to interfere between these two women because you'll more likely end up pissing both of them off. So this is the Indian marriage scenario, the Indian middle class marriage, sometimes even higher classes, I should think. Upper middle class also, you have the same scenario playing out. And so word of wisdom and word of caution for those who are in this situation: please don't try to broker peace. Please don't be the middleman. Get out of the way. Let them deal directly. It is their relationship, and you need to make it very clear that the relationship is not through you, it is direct. So this is one thing I want to say about the woman marrying the family thing. They will find a way. And they will find a way. It could be that they will find a way by permanently sulking with each other and never talking to each other. That's okay. Or one of them permanently sulking with the other. Your wife says, I'm never going to talk to your sister again or your mother again. That's okay. Or your father again. Okay. Here's the thing with me. The way I think, your father and you should ideally not be getting into women's quarrels. And if your father is getting into women's quarrels or your brother is getting into women's quarrels, like if you have a younger brother who says, Bhaiya, how can Babri talk to mummy like that? All I will say is, you really need to, if it's your younger brother, kick him in the balls. Okay, bash him up, throw him into a room, close the door. Okay, tie him into a bundle if you want. Basically, make sure he understands that you're big brother. If you can do that, if you are strong enough to do that. In any case, letting your brother interact with your wife and having a fight with her and all that, not at all a smart idea. Siding with your mom and all, it's not going to play out well. It's just a sort of it's a destructive scenario. Those who have some sense, way of talking to their dad, if there is a way to do it, because some people have good communication. They're like, dad, stay out of the way. Some people don't have that communication skill, so then it turns into a fight between that guy and his dad. Now, if that happens, I think there's a pretty high chance that the father is going to yell at him and tell him to leave his house. Get out. And if that happens, well, then you have a couple striking out for themselves and asking for a partition and give me my share of the ancestral property. And father says, there is no ancestral property, you little bastard. I earned it all. I made all the money. The whole thing is the result of my sweat and blood, you little shit. So get out there and you make your own fortune. Tough situation if people have to go there. So you have to ideally not get into that scene. You should be able to leave when you are good and ready to leave, not when you get thrown out. Anyway, I don't know why I got into this, but it's kind of important because the marriage, the modern Indian marriage is kind of, or many Indian marriages are kind of more about the in-laws than about the husband. Now let's come to the wife and the husband and the one-on-one marriage, what their relationship is, a little bit of decoding the relationship. So first of all, guys, it's a contract. Okay. Now, anybody who says otherwise is a little bit idealistic. You may say it's a sacrament, it's a relationship. Well, if it's really a sacrament, then you will absolutely never divorce. The idea of divorce will never happen. With your mom and dad, it's a sacrament. With your sister, it's a sacrament. With your brother, it's a sacrament. Why? Because you'll never disown your brother. You'll never disown your mom and dad. Your dad and mom will never disown you. They will kick your ass if they want or if they can. You may kick their ass if you can. But you're never going to actually fully disown them. There are very few of those. I think it's almost impossible, psychologically impossible. So, very unlikely scenario. So, that's a sacrament. Sacrament as in a sacred relationship which cannot be broken. That's a sacrament. With the case of husband and wife, there's always this feeling, if it doesn't work out, we'll ditch, we'll divorce. Wife often says it. She kind of seems to, many of the situations, you have these women who seem to think that bringing out a suitcase is a Brahmastra. Like, bring out the suitcase and start packing. Where are you going? I don't know. I don't care. Or, going to my mother's house. Bad idea. They do that, and by doing that, they are always declaring to the world and to their husband that they are separate, and they are potentially separate, and they can be separate, and that separateness thing is always there in the air. She's not a permanent part of our family. She's a separate part of the family, or she's kind of detachable. And women do that even with their kids. I'll take the kids and go to my mother's house. I think it makes the kids very insecure, and if she does it often enough, it will become a joke. Then it won't work at all. It's like, mom's packing a suitcase again. Though she can create a serious scene. And the other thing is women threatening suicide or men threatening suicide. Women threatening suicide especially. Just don't. Because it makes people so deeply insecure about who you are that it is more likely to lead to a complete breakup. So, as a way of fighting, it's a terrible way. It's a horrible way, and it leaves the kids traumatized. And I know one person who actually got a divorce from his wife, who actually was suicidal and depressive, and she ended up committing suicide after they got divorced, a couple of years after they got divorced. So, bad stuff there, bad stuff. No easy solutions, nothing to say, you just get tongue-tied around that kind of people. You walk around on eggshells around that kind of people. Very dangerous. They can hurt themselves. Of course, they will hurt themselves. They can also hurt you in the process. Like, why did she suicide? You are the bad guy. That's horrible. So, just don't do that. Is all I can say. It's kind of difficult to even comprehend. You can't give any advice. You can't talk around that topic. It's a ridiculous topic. Kind of ends all the topics when you go there. Within the domain of normal, healthy family, where guys and women interact, that's a husband and wife interact, it's a contract and it's a friendship. And it's a friendship with benefits. And it's a trade. And it's an ongoing trade. Where the currency is, listen, I'll be nice to you, you be nice to me. I'll do you, you do me. That's in bed, of course. But I'll do you, you do me in the sense, look, I'll do whatever makes you very, very happy. Whatever gets you feeling great, and you do whatever makes me feel great. So that's the trade, and it should be a trade. But then again, there is the element of altruism also, selflessness, as in I want to give you. I mean, this can turn into a very happy zone if each is saying, I'll do you more than you do me. I'll be more selfless than you. And if both can get into that mode, then it's really a wonderful relationship. If one of them gets into the mode and the other doesn't, like one is selfless and the other is selfish, can work provided the selfless person still gets his gratification, still gets some pleasure out of the relationship. So it's a question of degrees. Is it 100%? Is it good for you? Is it good for me? Is it 50% good for you? Is it 100% good for me? It's that kind of thing. There are relationships which are shamelessly selfish. It's like she says, I'm the boss, and he says, she's the boss. Some of it is just joking. You can joke. It's not really a fact. Sometimes some of it can be a fact. Again, temperaments. There are guys who can live within that situation, or there are women who can live within that situation, where the husband is the unarguably he is the boss, and it's comfortable for them. It's completely comfortable for them. Like she says he's the boss, and he says he's the boss. And he is the boss. So the difficulty here is, I have known people who can be very incompetent bosses, or very random bosses who can do very random things, in which case there is nobody to criticize, there is nobody to pull in the other direction. I have a friend who goes and buys clothes for his whole family. He is the only one who does shopping for his family. He buys clothes for his wife, for his children, and they leave it to him entirely. He is the guy who buys the curtains. He decides the furnishings, he decides everything about the house. And surprisingly, he's not a very aggressive looking guy. He's a pretty meek looking guy. Very normal sort of a guy. That doesn't work for me. I don't want the responsibility, to be honest. It's not about not being able to do it, but yeah, or maybe I'm not able to do it either. I can only choose for myself. I won't choose for you. You choose for yourself. I'll help you choose. You choose your clothes, I'll help you choose. I'll tell you what works for you, what doesn't work for you, what looks good on you, what looks amazing on you. I might say stuff like, can we afford it? Isn't that a little too much? I might say stuff like that. Please don't get pissed off. So that's the way I have lived basically. And quite honestly, I have even flipped the other way. Like, my wife can choose whatever she wants. Like, even for my clothes. Yeah, go ahead, buy me the t-shirts you like. I'm okay with that. So guys can do that, and the advantage of doing that, and there's an advantage, okay? The advantage of letting your wife buy stuff for the house, buy your clothes, of course they should fit you properly, and it shouldn't be totally random. It should be at least comfortable and decent looking for you. But the advantage of doing that is you can free yourself up for better things in life. You can focus on other things, including your job or your business or whatever it is you like to do. And it gives her a sense of power. I am like, okay, that's good. You like the power? Great. I don't like the responsibility. I call it responsibility. You call it power. Cool. Once in a while she may pull the reverse card on you and say, look at me, I'm taking all the responsibility, I'm paying all the bills. Then there's money. Money is a hot potato of problems, especially in the modern marriage. And it's because you have two incomes. You have a dual income household, like a double engine sarkar. Double engine sarkar or double income household works great, works fantastic, if there is more power in the man and less power in the woman. That's my opinion. That's my frank opinion. Like, if this guy is earning more and she's earning less, there's going to be a kind of a balance. Now, I know some people are extremely sorted about money and they can work it out even if the guy is completely retired and he turns into a stay-at-home dad and he says that, okay, you are earning enough for both of us. And there are couples who can pull it off, and they are, my hats off to them. I respect them, but I'm always a little skeptical. It probably doesn't work for most people. Probably won't work for most people. Like, I would say that 8 or 9 out of 10 marriages will fail if the woman is not only earning significantly more, and it's not a temporary situation, if it's a long-term situation where she is earning and he is not, then he has to take a very, very, very soft stance towards her. Some guys can pull that off. Some guys can even pull that off, and it can be a stable marriage where she is basically dominating him. She is just dominating him. She owns his ass. And guys can do that, and they can live comfortably with it. But if he's going to be a little bit of a... I don't want to shame these guys. I really don't. Because ultimately it's about having a good, stable relationship in the house. But I just think that it can be hard being a guy and being in that situation. Very hard. Painful. And destabilizing. It can destabilize. Now, the places where it can destabilize is because you have office friendships and relationships, close friendships at the workplace. So, here's where we come to office spouse situation again. When you have a two income household, and the guy goes and works, and the lady goes and works, and they both have friends in office, and if you have any kind of a serious career, you better have a certain amount of friendship with both genders. Your friendship should not be restricted to, the only one gender. Like, he will only be talking to men, and she will only be talking to women, and she will be pulling away from her office colleagues. That isn't a good situation. It's not a good situation work-wise. It's not a good situation life-wise, because you spend most of your life in office. So you have to have friendships. And those friendships can run quite deep, to the extent that someone gets called your wife's office spouse, or vice versa. You may have a office wife. Office wife or office spouse is not sexual, but there are a lot of vibes there. It's a very strong relationship. It's pretty strong. Yeah, it can surprisingly disappear. It can surprisingly disappear if you are asked to leave, and or she is asked to leave. Like if one of the two office spouses change offices, then they can lose the connect very quickly, because it was just temporary and it was within the context of that office. It was in the context of that workplace, that team, that setting, that project, whatever it was that was throwing them together. So that context disappears and they stop being friends. Maybe they meet occasionally in the canteen and say hi, but they can just stop. So it's a kind of modular relationship. But now, if you don't have a job and your wife does have a job and a career, and then she develops a relationship with some guy who, let us say, calls her at late hours, especially outside of work hours, which is completely normal in today's workplace, because people bring their work home, then things can start getting a little bit heated. And discussions, well, you can discuss your way out of these things. You can talk your way out of these things. Many people do. I know people who will talk very, very academically, but I think both the people have to be a little bit too academic in order to get through this. Frankly, I am not an admirer of people who are too academic. I know some people who are extremely academic when they discuss their own relationship. I can't understand them. Anyway, we'll discuss more about this. I'm Krish, the Urban Naxal. Jai Maharashtra, Jai Hind, Jai Jawan, Jai Kisan.